6 of 10, 130 yards and a touchdown. Some of that 130 yards came from yak, which is the most disgusting sounding stat in the NFL, yards after catch, but just yak.
But it's the most beautiful stat of all time. Sounds gross, but it's beautiful.
I know we got to talk Caleb here, but just quick rant. I wish that the NFL would give me two things in stats. I wish that yak only went to the wide receiver, not to the quarterback, to give us a better true passing, or they came up with the separate true passing yards. And then I also wish that drops and tipped balls by wide receivers were kept as their stat, like errors in baseball. So it doesn't count for the quarterback at all. It doesn't count as an attempt, a completion, or an interception. And then let's start to better track who's actually responsible for that. Look, make me the czar, Roger Goodell. I'll continue to come in and try and help you.
I will add on to that not only should sack yards be a quarterback stat, we also need to start talking about sack yards for defensively as well. It's not all about quarterbacks up in here, okay? We got to give credit to the big men. Give credit to the guys with their hands in the dirt, please.
The Wednesday episode is just going to be Yahoo Sports Daily fixes stats in the NFL. It's going to be the most watched episode, and I'm kidding. It's not. But it might be. All right, Caroline. We saw Caleb 6 of 10, 130 and a touchdown. Ben Johnson's offense, first time we saw him, it was good. It was fine, right? Like I want to have some big, huge, glowing. It was fine.
It was good. Like, it was a good outing. And I think we also need to remember that even though the Chicago Bears kind of continue to be the butt of several jokes in the NFL and they were not a good football team last year, Caleb Williams was still good last year. He threw for 3,500 yards as a rookie. And I think that stat is made even more impressive given the fact that a Chicago Bears quarterback has never had a 4,000 plus yard season in its history, which is just wild. And Caleb Williams was just 500 yards short of that clip in his first season with the franchise. And look, my takeaway from last night was Chicago Bears fans have every reason to be optimistic and excited about this Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson marriage, because what we saw last night was exciting. It was offensive fireworks. Now, he was going up against the Buffalo Bills defensive backups. I think there was only one, maybe two starter between the Bills starting 22 that was out in the field last night. So he's going up against backups. Keep that in mind. Add that to the grain of salt that we always add whenever we talk about preseason games. But 6 of 10, 107, touchdown. He did what he needed to do. Caleb Williams went out there, had a couple explosive plays in one of the series that he played that, it's exciting. We should be excited that all the hype that we've heard about from Ben Johnson as this offensive guru at least is paying dividends in one preseason game. That's what it was. One preseason game. It doesn't mean Caleb Williams is going to be league MVP. Doesn't mean he's not going to be league MVP. Doesn't mean that the Chicago Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean that they're not going to win the Super Bowl. It just means so far, so good, and optimism should be had in Chicago. But we also need to temper our expectations and remind everybody it was one preseason game against the Bills backups. But still, exciting. So far, so good.
This is one of those moments where I think I've remained consistent, and I try to remain consistent through the preseason. If a player is absolute hot garbage and it just looks out of sync and out of whack and terrible, I think that's worth looking at and saying, ooh, so we have a little pause for concern. Outside of that, there's very little that moves me one way or the other for anybody in preseason because the concepts are so different and the offense is so different. And I get all of that. So I look at this and say, I want to be fair. If Caleb came out and was just awful in the game, we would be turning around saying, is there reason for concern, especially given the amount of practice footage we've seen where Caleb Williams looked inaccurate, right? Like, I understand it's been a frustrating summer for Bears fans that want to see this explosive moment right out of the gates. It's just a process. And I know I say this too much. I constantly yell at everybody about it. I'll continue to yell on this show because I believe it so much. We are not in the NFL. It's not usually an Ozempic society. You got to do little things right every single day. You can't just suddenly take a pill and all of a sudden your team's better. I think this is going to be a bit of a process for Caleb. Here's what I expect throughout the course of the season. I expect some really good games and then some head-scratching games until it normalizes into what it's going to be. And I still think it's easy to forget how much we thought of Caleb Williams coming out in the draft. Like, there's a reason he was the number one overall pick, even above gasp Jayden Daniels. Like, there are college football people, draft people, scouts that genuinely believe, as hard as it is for us to remember, that Caleb Williams has more ability than Jayden Daniels. Like, I know Jayden took the world by storm, but again, systems matter. Like Jayden had a brilliant Cliff Kingsbury and an offense that was built to just sort of to week by week give him more responsibility and more opportunity. I hope Caleb gets that now. And I hope Caleb comes out and is better than Jayden Daniels through all of it, because frankly, that's a great story for the city of Chicago that's never had that quarterback. Caleb threw, to your point, for 3,500 yards and I believe 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year. Most rookie quarterbacks that do that would get all sorts of praise. We did the opposite last year because the Bears were a disaster. I just want to slow our roll in getting too excited or too down through this process and understand that Ben Johnson is going to reteach a lot of things to Caleb. So I'll worry about what Caleb looks like week 6, week 7, week 8. Until then, they're all just tiny Legos trying to build a bigger castle.
I talked to Baker Mayfield last week, and you can find that interview on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page. It should be up shortly. And I asked him about, obviously he had a great rookie season in Cleveland. It kind of all went downhill from there. Then he was a backup, and now he's a franchise quarterback in Tampa. I asked him about just that trajectory, about his journey, about what changes. And he said, it's a lot of it is right place, right time. That right now in Tampa, it's the right place for him at the right time in his career. And I think that also you can apply that same logic to wrong place, wrong time, right place, wrong time, whatever it might be. And you can apply that logic to Baker Mayfield's time in Cleveland, that it was a revolving door at offensive coordinator, that things were constantly changing, that sometimes when you are drafted to be the man and you are not immediately the man or consistently the man, that sometimes that can weigh on you, especially on a young quarterback. So I think that we need to put that kind of logic and apply it to Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Now, they're not the same quarterback. I mean, they could have drastically different careers. I always want to be very cautious in comparing quarterbacks, but Jayden Daniels may have just been at the right place at the right time. That under Cliff Kingsbury, he was the perfect offensive coordinator to be able to continue to unlock the greatness and athleticism that is Jayden Daniels. The pieces around Jayden Daniels was just tailor-made for him to escalate a team that had really been in just, the pits of misery for so long. Whereas Caleb Williams was drafted into a situation with a head coach that can't control the clock and an offensive coordinator that has zero feel for the game. There were pieces there and weapons there. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze drafted in the same class as Caleb Williams, but the coaching staff was not in place to develop and foster a young quarterback. Now, Caleb Williams, it feels like, has that in Ben Johnson, who is an offensive guru. So you kind of reset the clock a little bit. That yes, it's year 2 for Caleb Williams, but it's year 1 for Caleb Williams in a Ben Johnson system. It's important to point out, though, Fitz, we don't have patience. We as a football society, we want immediate results. And in year 2, it doesn't matter if it's year 1 with a new coach. Caleb Williams is in year 2 in the NFL. Whether it's right or it's wrong, we are all, as a football society, going to expect Caleb Williams to take a massive leap forward in year 2. That no longer is there a Matt Eberflus there to throw the blame on. The blame will now go on Caleb Williams if things go south in Chicago. Is it fair? Of course not. But welcome to being a quarterback in the National Football League, especially when you're the number 1 overall pick.